Hello, welcome. So I'm ending my Friday, and I thought, what a great way to come here and share. I spent the entire day on zoning meeting calls, on checking with my clients, on progress reports, plan of action meetings, and consultation phone calls. So I live and breathe assisted living. Oh, I also um, negotiated a contract for the Assisted Living Caregivers Conference, 2 days conference for 2027. So I'll keep you posted on that. But there was a reoccurring theme that kept on coming up. And I thought, first of all, I want to try how to do a live on YouTube. And second of all, I thought this would be very helpful to you listening to me giving you this knowledge. And of course, it's always my goals and my desire to add value to you so you can go out there and make a huge difference for our seniors. Anyways, um, zoning expiration letter. So I know that it could appear that if you get your zoning letter the first time, that that space will be reserved for you until you get licensed. But that's actually not correct. Um, so typically with the zoning approval letter, when you get the zoning approval letter, it it's in different phases. Oftentimes, you will get a set expiration date. You know that some places will give it to you. Expiration date will be a year later. Other places, expiration date is within 6 months. Other places will say whoever get licensed first. But when you get your zoning approval letter, you will know exactly what those requirements are when you need to renew your zoning letter. Um, People believe that getting your zoning letter is a one time set and forget about it, when in fact there are requirements. For example, AHCA requires that your zoning letter, by the time I submit your licensing application packet, your zoning letter cannot be more than 6 months old. Okay. And even more important than that, if your zoning letter is like over 6 months and your county is one of those counties or cities that don't reserve your spot and they tell you, first come, first serve, you'll have problems because what happens with the zoning letter is when you get your zoning letter, you're basically telling the city, I'm about to open an ALF. I'm not closed yet. This is my very first step. Remember, you still have to get fire alarm, fire sprinkler, generator. You still have to have your emergency management plan. We'll do the plans for you. And all of that takes time. Just the emergency management plan, at least the generator approval letter, that takes up to 60 days for them to even begin to review your application, okay? When we submit it. So it takes time for you to get those permits for your fire sprinkler, your fire alarm, your generator, your reserve gas system, all of these things, depending on who you hire, there'll be different contractors pulling permits from the city and getting those things moving. So you can see how long that can take. So if you got your zoning letter and it's expired and your spot is not reserved, somebody else may have requested a zoning letter within that distance requirement of you, and zoning tell them they can't have that space because that space is now reserved for you. Now, when your zoning letter become expired and you don't renew it, now the space is now open. It's back in the market. So whoever was waiting to get a spot, now have the opportunity to say, if they happen to do another zoning application, now they're going to get your spot because your spot is now open. So it's very important that when you get that email, 30 days before your zoning letter is expired for you to renew your zoning letter, please do it. And if you didn't get that email, usually they'll send an email for you to renew the zoning letter. And if your city is in a online portal, you'll get alert from the online portal that you need to renew your letter. But sometimes they don't even do that at all. So it's up to you to stay up to par with your zoning letter and request for those extensions, and make sure you request for them within that timeline. So if they tell you 30 days, make sure you put in your application 30 days before. Typically, there is a small fee that you pay to get that zoning letter reinstated with a new date. But even when we get ready to submit your AHCA process, we need your zoning letter to be no later than 6 months old. Okay. The other thing I got today was nosy neighbors. So I have a client that is in the process, and this is something that comes up all the time where neighbors are so nosy, and it could be both good and bad. So in the beginning phases, if you know you have nosy neighbors and your zoning is not all together yet, where okay, this is where I stand with zoning, you want to keep everything quiet. Go to the city, do what you need to do with the zoning. And there's a template below. Get your zoning letter um, approved, and don't tell anybody what you're doing. And I know I talk about marketing and I say, open up your home, open up your business to the church and the community. You can do all of that after you get your major systems installed. For example, if you haven't gotten your zoning letter or your change of use, you don't need to open up anything to anybody. At this point, you need to keep it quiet because those nosy neighbors can hurt you. If they rally up and they gather enough of them to go to the city and object what you're doing, it will block you. Okay. That's one of the reasons why oftentimes an area would request, for example, you can only have 6 residents, but you really want to have 8, and they allow you to have the 8th residence. And but you will have to go through a conditional use process. I tell my clients not to do the conditional use process because the conditional use process, they are telling all the neighbors about what's going to take place within the neighborhood. And if you have enough objections, now they can block you altogether. So I tell my clients, start with whatever is allowed. Once you're licensed, so if they're giving you 6 beds, once you're licensed, then you can go for that 8th residence. You get what I'm saying? But get your license first because at least nosy neighbors will not get you blocked. It is a thing where the neighbors will rally up and they will get you blocked. The other thing that came up was the ALF menu. So you know that you do need to have a licensed dietitian to do your assisted living menus. It cannot be any type of menu. So the menu establishes what you're going to feed your residents on a daily basis. Now, you can work with your dietitian, for example, if you have a resident that, have a particular taste buds and you want to make sure they are enjoying the food, you can work with your dietitian and make sure that you have food in the menu that will cater to all of your residents' taste buds. So everyone can enjoy eating the food and you can also enjoy serving them the food. Now we know a lot of times inside of the ALF menu, there's a lot of questions that come around. So you know what to do with the daily menu and rules and regulations. You are supposed to keep your menus for at least 6 months, right? So whatever, every week you have a new menu, and you're going to keep those old menus that you used. Now there are substitution menus that will come with that menu packet, as well as a disaster planning menu, where this is the menu that will cover if you have an emergency, for example, canned foods and different um, disaster preparedness food supplies that you need to have, your gallons per day. So you want to shop for those food supplies, but then um, you also want to keep using them as you buy fresh ones. So you would put the fresh ones in the back, and you would use the one you currently have on your daily food supplies. Now you have to have those minimum food supplies, emergency management food supplies for your current census. So, for example, if you are licensed for 10 residents and you currently only have 6 residents on hand, you're required to have you're required to have food for at least those 6 residents, and some for your staff, and also make sure that you are actually understanding what is within that disaster menu. Depending on who your surveyor is, they will ask you questions about your menus to see if you understand what to do with the menu, and that you are supposed to keep the menu on file. Um, And also make sure you find out from your residents if they are really liking the food. If they are not liking the food, you're supposed to have menu planning conversation with your residents to make sure that they are having a voice into what the menu that you're putting out is, and you can substitute and do things like that. Now, you can have parties, and when you have parties, you can go outside the menu, because if you're celebrating a birthday party, Christmas celebration, Thanksgiving, you don't need the dietitian to give you a menu for that, because it's a moment of celebration. It's not something that you do on a day-to-day, everyday basis. You are allowed to go outside of the menu and feed the residents. If you're having a birthday party, what have you. Okay, that is not a problem at all. Um, the other thing that came up was, um, I spoke with several people today that said that they were um, interested in getting into the ALF business, but they are busy professionals. They are tired and have different life situations that are going on. So technically, they don't really want to get into the business as an operator per se. They rather um, partner up, and they're not sure how to do that. So, my advice for that, if you're someone in my audience, you want to get into the business, but then you don't have the bandwidth right now to operate, you really have two options. You can either joint venture, where you partner up with someone, and however you split the responsibilities, where the person is managing the business, and perhaps you can be the one to provide the funding, and then you would hire a lawyer. I had on my podcast, I had at least, I think, 2 business lawyers that were on the podcast. You can contact any one of them, you'd be okay with them. And you would come up with your agreement, figuring out, everything is in writing, worst case scenario, who's doing what. Um, the other thing you can do is you can get into the business passively, where there are different size ALF, but typically a syndication model where there is a ALF that is coming up, usually the larger setup. where the owner is not involved in the day to day, and it's several people who own the business with different terms, and you invest your money. You're not in the day to day management of the business at all. So you're passive, you're a limited partner. And all the general partners are the people who manages the business, the ALF. And you invest your money as a limited partner. You're not even allowed to have a say so of what's happening in the ALF. And there's usually a term where they'll start paying you on whatever the terms of your investments are. And ultimately, in these type of structures, the business end up being sold and everybody gets paid. So that is the most passive way that you can get invested into this type of business. And of course, at the last conference we just had, we had a money panel, and we had someone in that panel that covers these type of ways to get into the business. So they'll be a good point of contact for you. So there are so many ways of getting into the ALF business and making a difference, and not feeling like you need to completely change your life before you get started. Um, and I think oftentimes, if we have the proper education, we're able to make the correct steps. So my advice for you would be get educated, put yourself in the right rooms. We're having the next Assisted Living Caregivers Conference in January of 2027. You can get the tickets if you're interested to get the tickets now. There is a uh, buy one ticket and then you could bring your partner, so it's like two for one. And make sure that you are taking the right steps. And if you are new here, my name is Carlene Cadet Francois. I help busy professionals get licensed on first inspection in Florida. I am also the organizer behind the Assisted Living Caregivers Conference. You can register for next year. We usually sold out, so don't wait to get your ticket. Please consider like, subscribe. This is my first live. I know I'm not supposed to tell you this is my first live, but I wanted to come on and test this out and see how this work. And if there's any topic that you want me to cover, please drop it in the description, and I will make sure that I do videos on these. If you have any questions, if you know anybody who can benefit from this live, please consider to share it. Until next time, I will see you in the next one. Talk soon.